Well, Razorback fans, we know that it is a big one against Oklahoma State coming up this weekend for the football team. And it's pretty crazy that these teams have not played more. Why is that? And why they should? Let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I am also the host of the Inside Arkansas live show, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Wednesday. Man, flying by already. It's amazing going to make me making the trip over to Stillwater, hanging out there. That should be fun. I know a lot of you Razorback fans are going to be out there as well, and we're going to be out there hanging out at Eskimo Joe's afterwards. So it should be a lot of fun. But I wanted to kind of bring it up to all of you of just this particular game, which we'll talk about the matchups and specifics as we get closer to it. But something dawned on me, and I maybe alluded to this a little bit yesterday, but I put out a tweet about... I'm trying not to sneeze, about Arkansas and the fact that they have not played Oklahoma and Oklahoma State in the regular season in a very, very long time. Now, they're going to play Oklahoma in the regular season very, very soon. Could be as soon as next year because now in the SEC. But Arkansas has not played them since 1926 in the regular season, which is just absurd considering the campus for Norman is less than 3.5 hours away from Fayetteville. But that's Oklahoma. We're talking about Oklahoma State because Oklahoma State is not in the SEC, at least not yet. They could end up being. And this is going to be the first time that these two teams have met in the regular season or just in general since 1980. They played quite frequently, actually, during the old Southwest Conference days. And it made sense, just like it makes sense right now, that you have so many games between these two opponents considering how close they are in proximity. To get to Stillwater from Fayetteville, it's less than 3 hours. It's not far at all. And because of that fact, it has always fascinated me why they haven't played more. Now, some people are like, oh, because they're on the SEC, doy. Yeah, thanks. But I'm referring to the fact that so often you saw regional opponents play each other frequently, even out of the conference. And then in other cases, you saw them as college football grew and all college sports grew, them start to play other big-time college programs. You know, it's home and homes, it happens, and it's continuing to happen all the time. But I think back to some of the teams that Arkansas played. Arkansas's played Texas multiple times in the regular season. They played TCU. They played Texas Tech. They played, teams where they're supposed to play Michigan. That didn't happen, but it's neither here nor there. Played Rutgers. They played USC. I'm sure all of you remember that one. Hopefully you tried to delete it from your mind. Played SMU even. Like they played all these teams from all over the place. And it just took forever, I guess, for the Oklahoma State thing to finally come to fruition. I don't know if it was an Arkansas thing. I don't know if it was an Oklahoma State thing. I don't know if it was never even talked about, if there was some reason of why it was not talked about. But considering how often these teams have played in, say, basketball and baseball, it would only make sense for Oklahoma State to play more. Now, you're probably like, well, why do we care about who if we play Oklahoma State more? Why does it matter? And you're right. I mean, it doesn't in the grand scheme of things. I mean, you got the SEC. It's got enough great teams as it is. But to me, I want to play Oklahoma State often for the proximity between the two schools, similarities between the two schools, the connections between the two schools, and also just the overall culture between the two schools. I think it would benefit both schools a lot to have them play because I don't know if Oklahoma and Oklahoma State are going to get Bedlam going again. It doesn't seem like they are. Doesn't seem like Mike Gundy is into it. Doesn't seem like Oklahoma's into it. which is a shame because now Oklahoma State makes you think like Oklahoma's their biggest rival. So who is it now? And I'm not suggesting that Arkansas needs to be. I'm not. But you can be honest. If Arkansas, if it came out that Arkansas was going to play Oklahoma State every year in football, would any of you really be mad about that? Would any of you be thrilled about it? Maybe not. But I actually would enjoy it. I actually think it would be really good. I think it'd be maybe butting into a rivalry one day, something like that. That could happen. But I'd be all for it. Now, again, we're talking about this year. These two teams come together. Arkansas plays them in Stillwater this year. And if I'm not mistaken, on the schedule, it's supposed to be played in Fayetteville in 2027. It's just kind of the way it worked out that way. We'll see if that actually even happens, considering how much college football has changed. But it goes back to when you schedule opponents, when you schedule teams, when you're scheduling things, and when you're picking the opponents that you want to go up against, you can be selective. Like you want to go undefeated, you want to win as many games as possible, but there are rules in the SEC that every non-conference slate you had to have at least a Power 5 team, unless there was an exception. Like Arkansas, when they played Colorado State, the only reason they got that is because Michigan backed out. Didn't matter. But you're always going to have to play these non-conference games. And I've always felt like it's so great for the program to be able to schedule big-time opponents. Because say what you want about Arkansas as a program, they have scheduled big opponents. When they scheduled Texas all those years, when they scheduled USC, like that was massive. I know Michigan backed out, but they scheduled Michigan. They scheduled Notre Dame. That game's happening next year. TCU, at the time they scheduled, Gary Patterson had them rolling. And they were a really good team. I don't think they were in the Big 12 at the time Arkansas played them. But still, they were a team that were constantly in the top 5, top 10 at the end of the seasons. Only one I guess you didn't really have was Rutgers. Don't really think that they were ever nationally prominent, although they did have a couple years there, but not in the same way. But the point is that for a program that maybe doesn't get the right respect or enough respect that you feel like they deserve, they do get some respect from the opponents to reschedule. But Arkansas and Oklahoma State have so many similarities between the two. I think, of course, Oklahoma State's had a lot more success on the field. Mike Gundy has done a great job there. And it's amazing how long he's been there. It seems like just yesterday when he had the whole, I'm a man, I'm 40, which I think he was 38 years old at the time. That came out in like 2007. So just shows how long ago it was. And he's still there. And there's still a program that competes in that conference. There's still a program that is winning anywhere between 8 games and 12 games a year. They win the Big 12 on occasion. I think just a couple years ago, they won the Big 12 championship. So you're always going to get them where, and that's the thing too, is like, it's not like their recruiting is just next level amazing, or they're just like this, bringing in all these 5 stars. They do it with just a culture and a type of system, a type of program that gives them that type of consistency to make it work. And so Oklahoma State is similar to a lot of other programs that I look at as a Razorback fan and coming from Arkansas. It's a question of, hey, if they can do it, if Oklahoma State can be successful and consistently successful, why can't a program like Arkansas do the same? What is keeping Arkansas from being a type of program like Oklahoma State? Because I think every Razorback fan would sign up to be the program that Oklahoma State is right now. So what's keeping them? I look at them as you can call it inspiration. I'm not going to call it inspiration, but I look at them as a kind of a goal, at least. A way of proving that just because you're not LSU or Georgia or Texas or any of these other teams that have all the amenities, they're like, oh, well, you can never compete for anything. I don't think anyone's asking, and I don't think Oklahoma State really, at least more often than not, has not competed for a national championship. But they do compete. And that's the type of program that I wish Arkansas would roll into and be consistent with. And I think they can. It's possible. Just got to have the right people. But that's what's also going to make this game so intriguing and so much fun. 2 programs I haven't met since 1980. But 2 programs that are so similar and so close by that it's nice to finally be able to get this game going. And who knows, maybe it turns into something beautiful one day. It's only one way we can find out. Speaking of beautiful, we're going to continue on and talk a little bit more about a comment that was made by Marquise Robinson, the Razorback football player, a while back about Oklahoma State. Bulletin board material, people think so, but we'll talk about it here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, so stay with us. All right, folks. All you Locked On Razorback fans, passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle to level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. So with all the parts that you need at all the prices you want, makes it easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Now, it's funny to me anytime trash gets talked or shade gets thrown, especially in a press conference, because then everybody's like, ooh, watch out. I actually enjoy it a little bit. Like, I enjoyed it when UAPB did it last week, and it didn't work out for them. But I enjoy it when you have that, and you have that happen. And people start really, tearing it apart or getting all upset or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. But Arkansas has a secondary player, a defensive back by the name of Marquise Robinson. He goes by Cuddy. And he's a really good player, and he's a transfer from South Alabama. That's where he came from. Now, if you heard that, you're like, South Alabama, why does that matter? Well, South Alabama played Oklahoma State last year and upset Oklahoma State. That's the type of thing that amazing that Oklahoma State still ended up having a decent season because, usually a loss like that can really kill it. But Marquise Robinson, once again, gets to see Oklahoma State on his schedule. Well, he was asked about that earlier, and this was not this week. This was way back during fall camp when he was asked about this particular matchup and having them on the schedule once again. And it's coming back around because Oklahoma State fans have found it, but here's what he had to say.
If you had a chance to talk to some of the other players on the team about playing Oklahoma State, because you guys did that last year and took it feeling pretty good over there.
Yes, sir. Oh, I was telling them all meetings early. I was like, hey, they line up in there, this finna come. So we looking at film. I'm like, I told you they finna do that right now. So all the players, and one thing I like about the DB group here, everybody a listening ear and everybody got their own characteristics. So they'll really stand out to me here for sure. I feel like when we go back this time, it's gonna be a domination.
When you got here and you saw they were on the schedule, what was your initial reaction?
I say, oh, this 2 years in a row. Say, let's do it then. I got to go back in there. So let's go.
I love the comment. I love the confidence. I love the swagger, and I love the cockiness. And this is something that, again, Oklahoma State fans and some outlets have seen and gotten a hold of because we put it up on Inside Arkansas, and they got the clip, and now they're sharing it and like, bulletin board material. And maybe it is. And, maybe this is something that they're going to look at. And if they use it and if they win because of it, it's just part of sports. And you look for whatever ways to make it personal, as Michael Jordan would say, and find ways to win. But honestly, I love it. And I love the confidence. Because you think about this. Like, you think about where Marquise Robinson came from. He's out of Crosby, Mississippi. He went to Wilkinson County High School, and he played at South Alabama. But he's also, in his freshman year, he played at Southwest Mississippi Community College. So he's had quite the journey. And, you think about it, he didn't get any major offers. He was a 3-star prospect. And also, when he came out of the junior college, he was a top 10 junior college cornerback. But still, he wasn't somebody that was just highly regarded. Probably got overlooked a lot coming out of high school. And since then, he's just built himself up. Starting at Southwest Mississippi Community College, then boom, he goes to South Alabama. Now, boom, he's at an SEC school, playing for an SEC program in Arkansas. So he's probably looking at, I don't want to put words in his mouth or anything, but he's probably looking at, like, hey, what do I got to lose? Like I'm betting on myself. I've been building this for a long time now. I've been making this work for a long time. I've been making it to where I've gotten better as a player. I've taken advantage of my opportunities. I've waited for my time, and I've made moves, and here I am. And he probably remembers last year against Oklahoma State. A lot of people were doubting South Alabama. Probably didn't give them much credit. Probably didn't think that it was anybody was going to give credit to, and overlook them. I don't know how much of an underdog South Alabama was, but I'm sure it was multiple scores. And when you win a game like that, especially as a player like that, even if you didn't have the greatest season the rest of the way, it's like you're always going to have that. And it's always going to be in your mind of like, hey, we win against a top 25 team, Power 5 program in Oklahoma State, we won. Well, that was last year. Now here's this year where he's at Arkansas. But at Arkansas, it's the same thing for him. Like, I got nothing to lose. I'm confident in myself. I've built up to this point. So I'm looking forward to seeing so many reasons for this game, but the trash talk or the confidence, the swagger, cockiness, whatever you want to put it, it's always about put up or shut up. And trust me, if Marquise Robinson, they don't do well in this, if they don't show up, then that's a problem. And I'm sure Oklahoma State's going to hear about it. But if they do, if Arkansas shows up, the secondary shows up, if they take care of business, or as it's going to be a domination, as Marquise Robinson said, I think we'll have to put our belief in whatever Marquise Robinson ends up saying for the rest of the way. We'll talk a little bit about weapons, the good kind, here in just a second. So stay with us on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, folks. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have a little something different for you. Right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon game that's out of market. All you need to do is get a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sportsbook today. Again, visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook today. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I meant to get to this probably yesterday, but again, when there's so many topics that you have to cover and you try to make it work, it's tough. But we mentioned against UAPB, Arkansas had 28 completions from their quarterbacks and 14 of them to different wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, targets. That's a lot. I mean, that is a ton. And for a team that threw over 400 yards passing to only their leading receiver to only have like 50 yards is pretty crazy. And so on top of that, you have a running back situation where Jaquinta Jackson had over 100 yards and he's #1 on the running back room. Get it. But there's still some curiosities there as far as who's going to be the 2 or the 3 or what that's going to look like or whatever. But the point is you got so many weapons. Now you mentioned Tyrone Green, who can not only has an arm that he can make throws and hopefully continues to get better at it, but also can beat you with his legs. You got weapons. You got weapons at the skill position. So when you have a lot of those weapons, which I'm not saying all of them are pros or all of them NFL players or anything, but there's no doubt you have a lot of them. So when you're Bobby Petrino, if you're Tyrone Green or whoever, where do you go to? Like for instance, against Oklahoma State, 5 minutes left to go in the game. You got the ball at your own 22-yard line. And you're down by 4. Got all your timeouts left. You got to score a touchdown to take the lead. Field goal won't get you nothing. What's that drive look like? Well, for Bobby Petrino, it's probably pretty methodical, probably well thought out. Nice combination of run plays, play action plays. Maybe take some deep shots, maybe don't. Try to find some guys open in the middle of the field. You know, there'll be some strategy behind it. But the thing is when those moments come alive and when they end up being real, it's about who is your go-to. Who's your go-to target? Who are you aiming for? Well, Andrew Armstrong seems to be like he would be the guy, but Andrew Armstrong's injured right now. He's hurt. He's questionable, as Sam Pittman put it, for the game against Oklahoma State. But no, is it Tyrone Broden? He's really good, yeah. Is it Tesla? Is it Sategna? Is it Luke Hasz? Is it Ty Washington? Is it a running back? Like, where do you go? Like, right now, ask yourself, folks. Like, this is a fun question to talk about. But, like, if the game's on the line and you got one play and you're 12 yards out of the end zone, this is the final play of the game, who are you going to throw it to? Who do you want to throw it to? Well, I think most people's answer might be Luke Hasz, because as great as the wide receivers may be for Arkansas and everybody else, Luke Hasz is the best offensive threat, skill position-wise, they have. I mean, the dude's a Mackey Award winner, caliber player. So you go to him, right? Would that be the first? Is there any other options that would be in there? I don't know, but one thing I would like to see is Tyrone Broden. And the reason is because Tyrone's a good player. But I don't see him because the dude is 6'7". And when you have a player that big, I don't care if he's a wide receiver, I don't care if he's a tight end, I don't care about any of that. When you have a player that big, you got to find him. Let him go up and get it. So maybe that would be the option that they have. But at some point in time, Arkansas is going to be in this situation. And if they win the game, they make that play, who's it going to be? Who's going to step up? Who knows? Maybe find out this weekend. But at least they have options. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Neighbors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.